to be able to do this with you guys. To share a little bit about my story, I don't go into war stories, but what I can say is, first off, my sobriety date is June 30th, 2008. I was the guy that was homeless, living in my car, raging alcoholic, addict, anything I could get my hands on, that was me. I wouldn't say no to anything. Came from a good background, but chose to make a lot of bad decisions. Got about 8 years under my belt in jail, in and out. And at the end is really what's key for me is my life brought me to a point to where I suffered pretty bad. Tried detoxing myself many times in my mom's basement, tried to kill myself a few times because I couldn't take it. And by the grace of God, one day I woke up in a forest preserve and a light went on and said, I need to do whatever it takes to be able to go get some help. For me, I went over to my aunt's house and immediately tried to find a rehab facility. I don't know if you guys have ever been up at 2:00 in the morning and you see those commercials, 1-800-GET-HELP, and I used to be that guy that I would jump on the phone right away and say, hey, I need some help. And then they'd have you call someplace and say, oh, you got to wait like 60 days to get in. Well, that wasn't for me. I didn't have time, and I definitely couldn't go out there another 60 days, getting drunk and getting high and thinking I was going to live. So I wound up going to a mental institution, trying to check myself in for a detox. Sat there for a few hours with my aunt. And lo and behold, they said, sorry, but you're not eligible to be able to get in for detox. We don't do that. And I flat out asked the guy, I said, well, to get in, what do I got to do? Kill myself? And they said, yeah, pretty much. Well, I took my shoestrings out and I went out in front of the emergency room and I actually climbed up in a tree and I jumped out of it and tried to hang myself. By the grace of God, somebody saw me and was able to cut me down and I got in. While I was in the mental institution, though, it was amazing. I immediately, my whole focus is I need help. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how to do it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I need help. The local area for us, there's a place called Share that was a detox center. That was a 30-day treatment program. The door immediately opened up to be able to go there. And I remember from the first moment that I walked into that place, there was like this peace, like I'm home, like I don't have to struggle. They let me get into the detox center. And after that, I learned about there was a halfway house and a 3/4 house that we could go to. And there's a place called Serenity House for me. I was able to go through, I think it was a 90-day program. And then there was an aftercare program that we could go into. Didn't stay at the aftercare too long just because it was a lot of goofball stuff in there. But this is what I want to focus on more than anything. In the beginning of your sobriety, everything seems like it's a crap storm. There's a huge mess on your hands. Sometimes you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You think you're never going to get out of it. There's no end. The detox, at least for me, sucked because between alcohol and opiates, it sucked pretty bad. My first 43 days in treatment, I didn't sleep. So I know the pain for a lot of people is real. Some it's shorter, some it's longer, some of it's longer than me. I don't know. But for me, my main focus is what do I need to do to make sure that I stay sober at all costs? How do I protect myself so I never relive this dream? I can say this, I've never been back to detox. I've never been back to treatment. I've never had a relapse by the grace of God. But I protected myself because any little wrong move that I did was going to bring me closer to going relapsing. Going through treatment, dealing with people, I had like a stomach indicator, I used to call it, to where you would be in a meeting and you'd hear people talking and my shit meter would go off and I'd be like, you're full of crap, And for me, I know we're not supposed to judge, but my treatment's about me and protecting myself. And if I felt your program was off, I could not allow myself to get involved in your mess. I had to protect myself. I was scared to death. I was homeless. I didn't have anywhere to live. I was not about to go back to my car. So I did everything within my power to be able to do that. I was Did I just get muted? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, something happened. Um, I was very sheltered with my program, and I stuck to my counselors more than I did with other people. What I realized over time is how important that this program is, and especially the foundation in the beginning. How important are these steps? How important is what I realized is prayer more than anything. For me today, 12 years later, the number one thing that keeps me sober is my spiritual program and my prayer. On top of that is my gratitude. I have realized over time, if you work your steps the way that you're supposed to, and you make your amends and you go through all of it, you're supposed to have a clean slate. You got to remember that when you make your amends and stuff, it's not always going to go the way that you want it to. Some people will forgive you. Some people will tell you to pound sand, and they're not trying to hear it. That has nothing to do with you. But when you work the steps, you start over, you become a new person. The main reason when you do the steps is you take a look at all the stuff that you've done in your life and how you've done it wrong. And the goal is to not do it anymore. Doesn't mean that we're perfect. Doesn't mean that we're not going to make mistakes. I still got bad attitudes all the time, but I learned to clean up my messes a lot different. My ego, I'm not the center of the universe anymore, even though I still want to be. I think I'm famous. I think I'm amazing. But I got to pull myself in and say, no, I'm really not that special. I'm just a normal person, with normal problems. I just don't have the drinking problem today. In those 12 years, have I ever had the urge to drink? Absolutely. Have I ever thought about getting high? Once in a while, I think about it, but I realize the consequences outweigh the feeling for the moment. Do I ever have regrets that, man, I kind of screwed up my drinking and I wish I could be normal like people? Absolutely. That's honesty. Are the repercussions of me trying to attempt it worth it? Absolutely not, because I know where it gets me. But I've realized when it comes down to the program for me, prayer and gratitude is number one. Perfect example right now is this pandemic that we're going through. Nobody gets to go to meetings. It is very hard to meet with sponsors if they're not local to you, to be able to sit down and go out for coffee and say, hey, man, I'm struggling today. I feel like getting higher. I feel like drinking. What do I do? You can't just go bury yourselves in meetings. And in all fairness, live chats on the phone is not the same as being in person and someone in your face talking to you or getting a private meeting with someone. So the struggle is very, very different today. And what I've realized is with the meetings not being the way that they are, sometimes the only thing you have to fall back on is your spiritual program with your higher power. How much do you rely on that and how much do you actually really trust it is key. For me, prayer in the beginning was one of those things you just kind of look up and say, God, help me, whatever you are, whatever it is, and eventually that develops for you. But there's going to come a point in time that if you keep creating a new habit, praying to a higher power, one day you're going to look back and you're going to realize something was there to guide you. No matter what it is, all your struggles that you're going to go through, something's going to be there for you. For me, it took a few years to be able to look back and say, holy cow, there's actually really something there. To believe it in the beginning, in all fairness for me, no. I was holding on, white knuckling, not to not relapse, but to somehow survive and not die. That was the big thing for me. I didn't want to die. I knew for me that the very first time I went back out there and I got drunk or I got high, I would purposely try to kill myself because I can't go through that again. I was at the point of my addiction that it was easier for me to kill myself. So I didn't have to deal with the pain. And it wasn't the stress of life, but it was what I was doing to myself. It hurt so bad that I just couldn't tolerate it anymore. But as time went on for me, and the constant prayer and constant dedication, I had a killer sponsor in the beginning that was just amazing, that I could meet with all the time, would listen to all my BS. He would fire me because I wasn't listening. Then he'd, bring me back and, I'd be mad at him. But we had this like killer relationship before he passed away that he taught me a lot of stuff. And the biggest thing is you have to listen and realize it's not our way of doing things that we're used to. The cool thing about the program is this, here we are with everybody that is all over the United States and out of the country. The program is exactly the same. The only difference is for this program is how hard are we going to make it on ourselves? Some people make it easy. Some people go in and out for years and years and years, and then you're back to square one all over again. I'll tell you, time flies. 12 years, I look back and I feel like I just came into the program. I remember the struggle first coming in, and it goes so quick. And the big thing that I always try to teach my sponsees is don't waste your time. If you're coming in at 19 or 20 or 30 or whatever it is, you don't want to be 10 years later stuck in the same spot where you originally started. You just wasted 10 years of nothing. And it's important. Not only that, but your body can only take it for so long. A big thing for me too is gratitude. I learned to be grateful for a lot of things in the very beginning because I didn't have nothing. I had my car and that was it. And that was on the repo list and I didn't have anything else. I didn't have no money. I didn't have no job. I didn't have no food. I didn't have anything. When I would get $5, man, would I get on my knees and say thank you. When I have an opportunity to be able to go to work for 2-3 hours or whatever it was to say thank you, it goes a long way. To realize the little things in life is way better for me than the bigger things in life. Gratefully today, I got a company that employs 20 people full time. I'm doing pretty good. And I owe that to God. All I did is put in the footwork to try to do something right for the first time in my life. Every time that I did something right, I had to look up and say thank you because it wasn't me that did it. I just did what I was told to do. And the blessings come. And I can promise you this, in the beginning, it's going to suck. We have a mess. It needs to be cleaned up. It's not going to be nice for anybody. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting on this damn phone right now. But if you are consistent and you are faithful and you are dedicated and you don't let it anything get in your way, you will succeed. There's no way around it. Otherwise, this program wouldn't be around as many years as it is. The greatest thing that I was able to take out of this whole entire program is my relationship with my higher power. It's not just a higher power, but it's a friend. It's someone that you can talk to, someone that's going to guide you, someone you can share with, that you don't have to worry about being judged because he already knows what you're going through. To be able to rely on stuff and know that it's going to be okay, that blind faith that everybody talks about, it's real. It takes time to get there, and it's not easy to get there, but it will happen. I am grateful for every single person that is on this chat because every single person is a miracle and they all have an opportunity to change. That's the cool thing about this whole thing. I'm grateful to be alive. I came into the program at 32 years old and tried to kill myself ever since I was probably about 24 or 25. And I never thought I'd have a 40th birthday. I'm married. I got 3 kids. The blessings keep on coming. Just when you think you've got the big hoorah, the greatest blessing, no, something better even happens. It doesn't stop. But the only way that your blessings are going to stop is if you stop putting in the footwork. It's not a program to where we're cured. We may have cleaned up a lot of our mess. Our character defects are always going to be there, but they may be hidden now or they change. I realized, for instance, my character defects, my big one is my ego. To change those over time is just a little bit of redefining every single day. Don't put yourself in situations to where things are going to happen. But it's all possible. That's the awesome thing about this program is it's all possible. Your past is your past. It's not today. It doesn't define you today. What you did yesterday is completely irrelevant for today. I think that's the biggest hang up for me too in the beginning was taking all that weight and all that mess from the past and thinking it still makes you today, and it doesn't. If you're not doing that same stuff, it is completely irrelevant. Now, if you choose to hang on to the old behaviors, then yesterday's past is still today then, if that makes any sense. But when you start slowly changing and making yourself better, then that doesn't have anything to do with you anymore. That's the blessing of this program. If I can give you guys one key to take away from this whole entire meeting, that is, what is your foundation to your program right now? And if you're already into sobriety for a little bit of time, take a look at yourself and say, how solid is it really? If we were to stop every single meeting right now, and you can't talk to anybody right now, and you don't have a big book to read right now, how safe are you? I can honestly say for myself, I will be okay. It will suck really, really bad, and I will not like it. And I will try to find ways to make phone calls to talk to people. But I believe that my strength with my higher power right now is good, and I'm strong. Do we need meetings to be able to stay sober? Absolutely. You need that communication with people, but it makes you rely on how solid is your foundation right now? How strong is your spiritual program to push you through the times that you're not going to be around to be people? That's a big deal. And for me, if your foundation is not strong in the very beginning, it's like building a house. You start from the bottom and you work your way up. You know, you can't build a house on sand. It's going to fall over or it's going to sink over time. You got to start on concrete. And I do believe that the core of your whole entire program is based on the very beginning on how strong are you going to make it. And the number one thing that makes your foundation strong is your spiritual program. You know, everybody always talks about praying and gratitude, prayer and gratitude over and over and over. And there's a reason for it. So with that, I just want to say thank you guys for the opportunity to be here. It's an absolute blessing and an honor to be with you guys.